this hot, this the spot. There it is, pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and laughter stream right to you, from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to the There It Is podcast, a comedy podcast to help you find your inspiration. I'm your host, Jason Farr. Let us do this. Let us all do this. Thank you for joining us on this very special Christmas episode. It's not only special because it's the holiday that we on this podcast celebrate, but it's also special because it's unique this year. This year, it's not just me and Justina or just me chatting. It's the Of the Show gang and myself talking about a brand new bracket. It's a bracket episode for Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. You have a bracket to do, and it is a Christmas movie bracket. I hope you enjoy it because let me tell you, it was a lot to put together. It's only a 32 entry bracket. I explain how the movies that are on here and why some did not make the cut. There are way more movies that I will say myself should have been on a Christmas movie bracket than can fit into a 32 entry Christmas movie bracket. And that's unfortunate. I really wanted to get some movies, like I'm sure you already are looking and saying, where's Love Actually? Where's The Holiday? And they just did not make the cut. And I talk about how that transpired and what I wished could have gotten on with the Of the Show gang. Here's a holly jolly chat about our Christmas movie bracket. Welcome, Of the Show gang. I'll introduce you one by one. First up, the person who suggested we do this bracket, best friend of the show, Rob.
I have a blue Christmas without Trey.
Speaking of, YouTube video editor who'll have a tough time putting this one together, brother of the show, Trey.
What did you wish for when you threw that rock?
And of course, Christmas episode champion, girlfriend of the show, Justina.
Hello. I got nothing.
No reference. That's fine. It's fine.
I'm pretty sure they say hello in every single movie on this bracket, though.
There you go. That worked.
Maybe.
So, Rob, you are the one who suggested that we do a Christmas movie bracket. What made you make that suggestion?
Because my son is like knee deep in Christmas stuff right now, and he keeps asking me what's my favorite Christmas movie, and it's like, well, I want to tell you what my favorite Christmas movies are, but I don't want you to watch any of them. So it made me start thinking about, what is like my favorite Christmas movie, and like, what is like something that gets me in the spirit for the season.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. And I feel like there was an element with the last bracket, the Halloween songs bracket, that was inspired by your son.
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah, well, I mean, when you spend 24/7 with somebody. No, and it's really funny because he's still like, right now we're like oscillating between Christmas music and Halloween music. So, like yesterday morning I was making pancakes and he was listening to Ghostbusters.
Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! I can't hear you.
And then there's a guy he likes named Blippi, who, if you don't know who Blippi is, God bless you and keep going in your life. But if you do know, then you know he's extremely annoying. And he has a Christmas album. And so, yeah, of course, we kind of were going between Halloween songs and Blippi songs about Christmas.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose,
Like a diamond.
and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glowed
Like a light bulb.
So we got bangers going on 24/7. So
Well, let's talk about this bracket. It's a 32 entry bracket broken up into 4 divisions: TV specials, animated movies, traditional movies, and non-traditional movies. and those are the movies people debate about being Christmas movies or not, like Die Hard or Gremlins. And here's how I put this bracket together. I heavily leaned into having an IMDb Pro account, which I only got because of the stuff Trey was doing with promoting the podcast. And now I'm like, well, I have a reason to really, really dig in. Plus, and I'll be honest, I miss boxofficemojo.com. They were bought by IMDb, and it's harder to use that, get to that info.
I think about once every 2 weeks I look at Box Office Mojo and I just get so mad.
Yeah.
Like the new format is just how do they not know their new format is terrible?
Their new format is terrible, and they're making people pay for it when Box Office Mojo is free, and you could get all the information
is
about.
Is that why I can't see anything I want? Okay.
But the format is worse.
Yeah, because it's like, I was just trying to compare, like not to go on a digression here, folks, but I was like, how did A Quiet Place Part 2 do versus A Quiet Place? And it used to be you'd scroll down on Box Office Mojo and they'd list it out, and then they'd list out like a movie similar to that to give you an idea of what the box office is of that. They don't do that anymore because they're garbage.
Yeah, I'm pretty upset about it.
Christmas!
I don't love it myself, but...
Yeah. Capitalism.
Yeah, pretty much. It's it's the Mr. Potter of the world. No, let's just keep the Christmas movie references flowing.
Not with my money.
Nevertheless, with IMDb Pro, I could easily look up the all-time highest grossing movies in Christmas categories, of which there were 3 categories. And I could look at the popularity ranking known as Movie Meter, which helped me see how popular a movie was compared to others. And it made seeding a lot easier when I got to that part of the bracket.
Yeah.
And I looked up different lists as well. I looked up best Christmas movies. In total, I looked at over a dozen lists. I looked at best non-traditional or Christmas adjacent movies, best horror Christmas movies, and plain old best Christmas movies. And those lists, the best Christmas movies, had movies from all categories, including TV specials. So it was pretty all-inclusive. And I also looked at Rotten Tomatoes to look up their ranking of best Christmas movies and the movies' ratings. And I also took into account how people talk about these movies in conversation. People argue about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not. But nobody is bringing up Iron Man 3 except Shane Black. Shane Black, side note, you could make a division of just Shane Black movies because all of his movies involve Christmas in some way.
Yeah, I was surprised. That's one of the non-traditional things.
Yeah,
Shane Black.
I understand. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Off the top of my head, I could name Lethal Weapon, Iron Man 3, Long Kiss Goodnight, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and Last Boy Scout. And that's not even all of the Shane Black.
Did he do Long Kiss Goodnight?
Yeah, he wrote it.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there is another one. I'm blanking on it now, but I saw it earlier.
Nice Guys.
It was one that I had to... Yes, that's it. With Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. Yeah, I kept wanting to say Russell Peters, but he's the comedian and very different than Russell Crowe. I decided to include the biggest, most popular, most highly regarded, most iconic movies for this bracket. That's what got on the bracket. So there were a couple of unfortunate cuts that I had to make simply because there are only 32 slots. Unfortunately, because
for each category, only
8. Exactly, which in some cases it didn't matter that there are only 8 spots, but in the traditional category, it very much mattered that there are only 8 spots. That made doing the bracket hard, and it made filling out the bracket hard. Before we go into how you filled out your bracket, what movies or TV specials are you surprised aren't on the bracket?
Before you start answering, I just want to give a shout out to Jason. However hard it was for us to complete the brackets, looking at it from a distance, it looked like it was the hardest for Jason to put together.
He saw the spreadsheet.
No, we were trying to be a little more helpful this time around versus like I don't want to drag him across the coals for this one, but no, I mean, there was like obviously like a couple like the Santa Claus and Jingle All the Way are probably two that I was surprised didn't
I
make the
was
list,
too, honestly.
but it's also because of the categories that you've chosen. So,
Right. Justina, what were you about to say?
Yeah, it was a hard bracket to make, definitely, but I think that this category warrants a few more brackets. Like we can do a bracket next year. And
Yeah.
possibly
It's
the year
interesting
after.
that you say that, because that when I finished putting the bracket together and was just writing the script for this episode, I thought I could literally do a 64 entry
yeah,
bracket.
yeah. This is actually one of those where I thought this could be our biggest bracket ever.
And I just think we're going to do it again and make it one.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to because I mean, looking at the list, it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I
Right.
don't.
I mean, just so people know, there were around 50 possible entries for just traditional movies alone.
Right.
Yeah, it
And just
was
when
like
you go
looking at.
to IMDb Pro and look at all time like highest grossing movies, there are like 70 some movies. I had to just whittle it down to something that was
I mean,
easy to deal
there's
with.
there's so many ones that it's like, yep, 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 yep. But it's like, yeah, it's like I don't know. It's hard. I mean, because like, yeah, like so we don't have like Love Actually. Like that's one that's
Oh my gosh.
That was on the
Yeah.
bubble. That was
Yeah,
on
and
the
I mean
bubble.
that one's like extreme. You know, I mean that one's extremely replayable, and I mean,
Mhm.
but I mean, but then again, it's like the ones that are traditional. I don't know which one I would have cut for it. You know what I mean?
Right. It's tough. And
Yeah.
so when I was thinking about it earlier, I thought, well, you could do so many different divisions. You can do so many different
Hmm.
kinds. Like, yes, a 64 entry bracket, but you could also do a 32 entry bracket that is so many different categories. You could do a
Hmm.
Shane Black division. You could
Horror.
do old-timey classics. You could do horror.
Yeah.
You could do modern classics.
Hmm.
You could do a Christmas Carol bracket.
You really could do
You
because then
literally could do
you could do all of the spoofs of yeah. I mean, there's so many
right.
different ones.
Just a bracket that's nothing but a Christmas Carol. Like there are just so many damn versions of that movie.
Yes.
I know what Trey's favorite
Too
one is
many.
though. Trey's favorite one definitely is the one with Vanessa Williams that they did on VH1 in the 90s.
I had forgotten about that till you said that.
They really need to stop making that movie. Like we've
Yeah.
seen enough. Let's just never do another A Christmas Carol until Benedict Cumberbatch is old.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
we all know we want to see him play Scrooge when he's old. But it doesn't need to happen right now.
But if you want to see him as a curmudgeon, watch Power of the Dog.
I've heard that's a good movie.
It's actually really, really good.
Oh, dope. Are there any others that people wished had made it and were surprised that it didn't make it? Because I have a couple answers myself.
I don't know. I saw a little too much of how the sausage was made, I think, to
Yeah.
have one. Because I mean, there is probably something I advocated for that didn't make the
Mhm.
list, but looking at the list, I've already forgotten what I've advocated for that didn't make
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really have one.
Well, I wish I could have, for me, gotten some black movies in there because I was hoping
Oh, like
Best
a
Man Holiday was going to
holiday.
get in
Yeah.
there, even though I don't necessarily think it's a great movie.
No, I would not. I would not advocate.
Or
for
The
that.
Preacher's Wife.
Okay.
The Preacher's,
Um,
but that's Christmas time?
I mean, it is. It does
Okay.
have a Christmas. I think it's like a sermon, a Christmas Eve sermon.
Oh,
or
it is?
something like that.
Okay.
And it's like a
Mhm.
remake of The Bishop's Wife, and that's
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
tough when they're remakes. Like, how many of these remakes do you need to actually include? We'll get to that later. That's foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And also for posterity's sake, I wish something as traditional as Nutcracker could have gotten on there, but it was so hard to fudge the numbers to make it work. I just couldn't get any Nutcracker, and there are too many Nutcrackers, but I couldn't get any to work in any
Too
category.
many Spider-Mans.
Earlier today, tragedy striking the new musical Spider-Man 2, Too Many Spider-Men.
And I also was a little bummed I couldn't get at least one Shane Black one in there, but they just were like
Yeah.
barely making the cut. And it's too bad, honestly. It's just too bad.
It's hard to advocate for the one that I think should be there which is Lethal Weapon. And so it's really hard to
Right.
advocate. It's hard to advocate. It's hard to advocate, but I watched it recently and it's so good.
It's
It's like,
so that one was high up
yeah.
there as a possibility, but it just didn't feel as Christmassy, and that's how it ended up not on the list. It
Oh,
was
see,
just sort of like,
I
there
see
are
it. I
others
mean,
that are more Christmassy than that
well,
one.
no, I mean, because like you think about like the final fight between Gary Busey and Mel Gibson in the driveway, and they've run into Danny Glover's house with the car, and it's it hits the Christmas tree. I mean, there's definitely a lot of Christmas in that movie.
There is a lot of Christmas in the movie, but I was taking into account how many people reference the movie in regards to
Yeah,
Christmas, and how many, like I said, how many lists it got on. And it did get on a couple, but it wasn't like some of these others
yeah.
that did make the cut. And also, I was trying to say, I was trying to give a little more credence to the movies that, if it was like Die Hard, as you pointed out, if it wasn't Christmas, then he wouldn't have even been there. So there's like no
Yeah, I mean,
movie.
I never understand the argument against Die Hard being
Yeah.
not a Christmas movie. It's like
That's
there's
particularly when people
so
say
much Christmas sentiment.
it doesn't have to do with the story. It's like it's kind of central to the
It's
story,
the
more
whole
so
idea.
than Christmas is
It's a
to It's a
Christmas
Wonderful Life.
it's a Christmas party. There's tons of Christmas music.
Hmm.
It's December 24th and holiday. Oh, never mind.
That's also why Eyes Wide Shut is on the list. We'll get to
Yeah.
that, but I
Okay.
mean
Yeah.
that is why these are on there. And so let's just go ahead and start talking about how we
Uh,
filled out the bracket.
my wife
We'll
has
go.
one more. My wife has one more for us.
Oh, what's
Prancer.
that?
She wants
Prancer.
Prancer.
I know. I
She's
kept
a
seeing that one, and
yeah.
it's like, it's just not talked about. It's talked about a good bit, but it
But I
just
think
wasn't.
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know. It was tough. It was tough.
yeah. It's a hard. It's again like we said. Like traditional could easily be 32 films on
Yeah.
its own.
Yeah, and like you can just split it up to like black and white classics to modern classics, so you can sort of
Hmm.
separate some of that, and make it not as heartbreaking to do the traditional category like it was for this bracket. Again,
Yeah.
foreshadowing.
Uh,
But, um, but so let's go by division. For
hmm
each, tell me what you found to be hard matchups
hmm
and what ended up being your top pick for that division. And let's start with traditional movies. Quick note on this: you have three options for A Christmas Carol. This is how I kind of fudged the numbers because there's so many Christmas carols that were all talked about a pretty good amount. A Muppet Christmas Carol was the most popular and made the most lists and
Yeah.
was just super high up there. But it was weird. It was really tough to do this category because if I did it only by Rotten Tomato ratings, then there's some movies that wouldn't have been in the top 8, like Home Alone and Christmas Vacation. But then
What?
yeah, I know, for real. And
That's why
then
Rotten
if I,
Tomatoes is garbage.
well, it's a bunch of like, I don't know.
It's garbage.
What's the saving grace for that was that I did also include audience score to
Okay.
help me in this category, because no matter how I looked at it, whether it was movie meter score or how many lists it got or
Mhm.
rating or whatever box office, something classic that everyone talks about when talking about Christmas movies was left out. And the 1938 version and the 1951 version of A Christmas Carol were two that were consistently being left out.
Mhm.
And the 51 version seems to be the most beloved. And how do you not include the original? So I just said, if when you're doing the bracket, whichever one of those is your favorite, use that. That
Yeah.
is the
Yeah, that
version
makes yeah.
that you're
Mhm.
pitting up against the Christmas Story. So let's
Mhm.
start for the traditional movies category with Justina. Justina, what were your tough matchups and what did you end up as your top pick in this category?
Yes. So the toughest was for sure, Christmas Story versus My Christmas Carol, which is
Mhm.
the only Christmas Carol that matters, which is, of course, the Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yes.
And so that, I mean,
Yoda?
Oh, shut it. That was a solid. That was a solid Kermit.
so it had to go to A Christmas Story, but it was hard for me. And
Yeah.
as far as that went, that was the hardest one. And then eventually Elf versus A Christmas Story was very hard for me. And it was very hard for me. And do you want me to tell you what won traditional movies for me?
Yeah. What was the one that ended up in the final four?
It was A Christmas Story. It had
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Good
that was my-
choice.
Thank you.
Good choice. Rob, what is yours?
Well, the hard matchup, the first one was Home Alone versus Elf.
Yeah.
That one was pretty hard. I'm interested. I would love to see the metrics behind your seedings, because obviously, I mean, if you want to go through it for me, my wife, I might like, so I printed off two and I showed it to Megan, and so we were looking at it, and she saw my first move and she was like, "Who are you? What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, one, I was born in 1982. Bill Murray is the funniest human being ever. Obviously, Scrooge is a hell of a lot better than It's a Wonderful Life, and so I picked Scrooge immediately.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
That is one of my favorite Christmas movies, hands down. Jimmy Stewart, eat it, because I mean,
You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Bobcat Goldthwait, when Bill Murray's like, "I'm alive," and he's like, "Not for long," like,
I'm alive! Not for long! Milkman!
or Carol. No, that's one of my that's one of my
I do
family's
love that.
favorite Christmas movies.
Yeah.
So that was probably blasphemy to a lot of people, but I was surprised you had Christmas Vacation so low, because that won the category for me, and maybe something else. So
So you had some upsets there.
yeah, that to me is,
because that was the number 7 seed, and that's why you're saying you want to know the metrics.
yeah.
This was the toughest category. There were about 10 movies that were in the running, and as I was saying, it was super hard to determine what the 8 were. And when I did land on the 8, when I do what I normally do and say, and I kind of just go by quality and popularity and sort of gauge that. If I were doing it that way, the seating would have been different. But I leaned a little more into kind of how critics view the movie versus how audiences see the movie, and also old versus new. Just because otherwise that first round would have been a bloodbath. Like, you wouldn't have been able to get a number of these movies in, like, A Christmas Story and It's a Wonderful Life and Elf and Home Alone and Vacation, like whatever your favorites were, a bunch of them wouldn't have gotten to the second round or something like that. Half of them wouldn't have gotten into the second round because it would have been pitted against each other. It was just really tough to figure something out. And Christmas Vacation isn't low in my heart. Neither is Scrooged. As far as what I care about, Miracle on 34th Street would have been like 7th or 8th or something. Like, I just don't care as much about that movie.
Yeah,
But
I have
it's
no connection
so
to that.
highly regarded, and it's like in the top 3 of Rotten Tomatoes list, and it was like high on everyone's list. It's a Wonderful Life was pretty consistently number 1 on everyone's list.
Oh yeah, well, it's got like that nostalgia, and they play it every year. But I think it's weird because it's like, well, it depends on what your look. It's like, yeah, like probably like NBC or someone like that's going to play it on Christmas Eve or Christmas night. But some of this other, I mean, Vacation's going to be on like TBS 24/7, like just like TNT does A Christmas Story 24/7.
Out of the list that I saw, A Christmas Story and Elf were not on every list, but the others were, you know?
So like for us, like our tradition is when we put up the Christmas tree, we watch Elf. So we have Elf playing while we do the Christmas tree.
Right.
Santa's coming to town. Santa! Oh my God! Santa here?
And then probably some night this week we'll watch Vacation. Like, because obviously the kids, they're not watching Vacation yet. So I don't know how old Luke will be when he gets to see it. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I did the traditional movies last because I knew it was going to be the hardest. And in doing it, in putting it together, and then thinking about it, where I said there should be another Christmas bracket where these classic movies are just not in the same category. as the modern ones. And then also it would have to be like a 16 entry per division sort of bracket in order to make sure that those classics that are on here, of which all of those, I would say all 8 of these deserve to get in the second round.
And the only thing is then it lessens like something in the traditional category. It's like if you look at it from a sense of like, oh, these people made the final four. It's like I would say a couple like one film in the final four I picked, and I'm like, there's like nothing on. It's like everything in the traditional movies is better than that one, and so that's a little frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was tough for me too.
Yeah.
Trey, do you have a hard matchup?
Yeah, so again, I saw how the sausage was being made, and earlier on in the process, when I saw what was maybe making the list, in that moment in time, I thought the traditional bracket was not going to be so hard for me. And then the final version hit, and I was like, mother forking shirt balls. What in the hell? And so the toughest ones were Miracle on 34th Street and Christmas Vacation, and A Christmas Story versus A Christmas Carol for me.
Yeah.
Which Christmas Carol, just by the way?
So for me, my mom and I always kind of like both the 38 and 51 versions. Now it's harder to find the 38, so for purposes of the bracket and YouTube channel, I'm talking about the 51 version. But I kind of consider 51 and 38 about a tie.
That's interesting. Okay.
So many things listed 51 and not 38.
Does anyone highly regard the remake of Miracle on 34th Street, or is that pretty much like when people are talking
That was
about
another one that made a lot of lists, and it had a decent. That one came out in 94, and it wasn't a lot of lists.
Is that Elizabeth Perkins? Is that?
I thought it was the girl from Matilda. Is that who that is?
Yeah.
The little girl from Matilda. No, I'm talking about the mom, the lawyer.
Yes.
This is another one where it's like, if you want to go with the 94 version, please do.
Yeah.
But they're
Well, I think
two,
Richard.
so
I think
like,
Richard Attenborough plays Santa.
He does.
And so that one,
You're right. Yep.
Yeah. What I partly did too with this was put in like I pitted classics versus new ones as much as I could, but I was like, there are 5 modern ones. I can't do that with everything. There were going to be some modern ones that were going to go up against each other. So I wasn't happy with. This was the happiest I could be with this division.
Also, I'm really pissed. How come we didn't get any Hallmark movies in here?
I know, that was another thing. You could do a Hallmark. There's so many damn Hallmark Christmas movies.
Funny, you're taking it seriously, but it's not.
But honestly, I didn't even consider them. But like, when I was thinking about other brackets you could do, it's like there's so many of those. That could be.
Oh my God, you couldn't even do a bracket because there's so many Hallmark Christmas movies.
Yeah.
Like, it's impossible.
Every year there's another 30.
Yeah, like it's impossible.
And they're not good.
Oh no,
they're the same story.
But my mother-in-law loves them. In fact, I got her a pair of socks. I think it was 2 years ago that said that were like Christmas socks that was like, "Don't bother me, I'm watching Hallmark movies" or something like that. It's like every time I would like come down, like I'd see her watching TV and she was watching Hallmark movie. And like, wow.
What were your other hard matchups, Trey?
Those were the main ones because it wasn't hard for me. The other ones, Home Alone versus Elf. I don't think I've ever actually seen Elf all the way through, just because of when it came out and whatever was going on in my life at that time that I didn't see it in the theater and then didn't go back and see it on
that's
TV.
so interesting.
There's enough of a contingency of Elf haters that I was like, maybe Elf and Home Alone won't be so hard for people.
Yeah, well, see, I mean, it was obvious that Elf, to me, should be on the list, even though I didn't see it.
Oh,
I understand it being high, and I understand people liking it. It's just, it hit this pocket of time where I didn't see it.
Well, and it's like for me, I never saw It's a Wonderful Life until I was an adult. Like, we didn't watch that in my family. Like, my parents just had no connection to that movie. So, like, so like, by the time I saw it, it was like, okay. Like, I just didn't, there's nothing, I didn't feel anything. It didn't inspire anything in me, and so.
Interesting.
Well, you're well known to have a cold black heart.
So we know what Trey's top pick in this category was, and it was "It's a Wonderful Life."
That is
Actually,
true.
I picked Halloween, so.
And I will say, I expected A Christmas Story and Christmas Vacation to get into the second round before I saw the brackets. But in both of those cases, I went A Christmas Carol and Miracle on 34th Street.
Mm.
I
Oh
just
wow, you
rewatched
are a
Miracle today.
traditional.
Well, I
Yeah.
rewatched Miracle today. I love Christmas Vacation, but it's just there's that optimism and messages of hope that I kind of resonate with me a little more in those sorts of stories.
Faith is believing in things when common sense tells you not to. It's not just Chris that's on trial, it's everything he stands for. It's kindness and joy and love.
I know that this is a comedy podcast. I try
No,
to
but
find
I
a way
think,
to
but
put
no,
it
I mean, but this is a personal taste thing, and I think that's, I mean, yeah, like,
Yeah, and I did defer to that with this particular division because a couple that were, if I did the numbers one way, and it cut out Home Alone and Scrooged and Christmas Vacation. I was like, well, this is a comedy podcast, so I
yeah.
can't cut those out of the bracket. Plus, they're talked
Right.
about too much.
And I mean, maybe it
Critic's
depends
wrong
on like
about this
how you Christmas too. Like
one. Yeah.
for like my family, and then now with my own family, like we definitely are way more into the fun, non-traditional or comedy stuff. So I
Yeah.
mean, like, like I remember I remember this is again, I was born in, so this is a little different. My kid will never be like me, but my parents, we took me to see Die Hard 2 in the theater.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
And we saw a preview for Home Alone, and that was, I like freaked out. I was like, oh my God, it's a Die Hard but a kid. Like I thought, like it was like I could not wait to see that movie.
I never
Oh,
And
thought
then
of
I
it
watched
that
John
way, but that's-
McClane.
I didn't think about it that way until today. Well,
Yeah.
because it was on earlier in the house.
Just one other thing about It's a Wonderful Life, based on what Rob said. Jason's heard this story before, but I've got a friend, Evan, who
Henson?
part of how we became friends is we're both like huge Back to the Future fans. Like it's our favorite movie, and he loves both of the sequels as well. And he somehow managed to not see It's a Wonderful Life until adulthood, like you, Rob. And a friend of his sat him down and had him watch it. And as he's watching, he gets all excited and he's like, "This is just like Back to the Future Part 2."
Which, for those who don't know, Robert Zemeckis was paying homage to It's a Wonderful Life with Back to the Future Part 2 when he, particularly that shot, when Bailey is looking around and like his face pans the screen and he's just like, the world is different, what's going on. They do that shot in Back to the Future too. And of course, being fantastic, Michael J. Fox nails it. So my hard matchups for this might be a little surprising because I do love Scrooged, but I love It's a Wonderful Life more. And I, as a kid, did not like Home Alone, and it wasn't until adulthood that I appreciated Home Alone. Elf I've loved since I first saw it, so it was easy for me to pick Elf. A Christmas Story is one of my favorite movies, so it was easy for me to pick that. And Christmas Vacation, I've seen a lot more, and I've seen Miracle on 34th Street, so it's easy for me to pick that, and it was easy for me to pick A Christmas Story over Vacation just because of my personal history with the movie. And it was easy to pick It's a Wonderful Life over Elf because it's a wonderful life. It's such a classic. And the tough thing was It's a Wonderful Life versus A Christmas Story because those are easily my two favorite Christmas movies, hands down. In a 64 bracket, I would probably have those two up against each other in the championship. Like there's no question. So it was tough that only one of them was going to be in the final four for me doing this. And it was the last decision I made. I fill out the entirety of the rest of the rest of the bracket. And that stayed blank, including the championship winner for so long. I ended up going with A Christmas Story beating It's a Wonderful Life because as a kid, I was fine with It's a Wonderful Life, but I've loved A Christmas Story since the moment I saw it. So had to go with that. Let's move on, though, to the next division. Non-traditional movies is where we'll go next. There were surprisingly a lot to choose from for this category. I knew going in that Die Hard and Gremlins and Batman Returns would be on the list because so many people talk about it, but I didn't expect so many other options for this category. There was also the question of whether or not Love Actually and The Holiday should be in this category because a lot of people argue that they shouldn't. In regards to Love Actually, they're wrong. It's 100% a Christmas movie.
Christmas is all around me.
That movie has just become polarizing the way people talk about things now. And there are some things that are weird about that movie, not the least of which is that Keira Knightley is
19 years.
18.
Oh, I thought she was 19. Oh, okay.
18, 19 in that movie, and the actors who are in love with her are 10 years older than her. Someone the other day posted like the little kid in that movie and was like, can you believe he was just 5 years younger than Keira Knightley? And I was like, what? I thought she was like 25.
Yeah, I know.
No,
I know.
she wasn't. She was a teenager.
She did play to her
She
credit,
played
to the
it.
movie's credit.
Yeah.
She did come across as like mid-20s.
Yeah. Totally agree. It was just bizarre to hear
Jeffrey
that
Epstein.
information. Love Actually, 100% a Christmas movie. It just didn't make the cut because these
you know why I can't support.
How could they not be in it?
I enjoy that movie because I love Hugh Grant, but you know why I can't support that movie? Because there's no freaking way a kid can learn to play the drums in like a week.
They don't play musical instrument.
Yes, sir.
A tiny, insignificant detail.
And he's like playing All I Want for Christmas and getting all the freaking fills right. That kid, no.
That's a fun movie, and I enjoyed it when I saw it. I should see it again.
It's a good movie. It's actually a really good movie. Minus the Colin Firth story is not great, but yeah.
My favorite time of day. Driving you.
É parte mais triste do meu dia deixá-lo.
Fair. And The Holiday was in the running for this category, non-traditional movies. I know it would have appeased some people if it ended up in here, but it just didn't make the cut. It just didn't. And that movie it almost doesn't even feel like a Christmas movie. It just like takes place around the time, but it's not central to the story other than the fact that they...
It is a Christmas movie. That is a Christmas movie. I will, a secret about me, I love Nancy Meyers. So
yeah, she's cool.
And like she can nail a kitchen, and so yeah, she's got two great houses in that movie, and so it's a Christmas movie.
That's fair. I just opted to. I would have probably ended up putting it in this category, but it still didn't make the cut, and it wouldn't have made the cut in the other.
I could have easily cut something for you so that you could have put it in there, but
okay. Well, let's start with you on this, and tell us what you would have cut, and then also tell me what your hard matchups were and what.
I told you I didn't want it in there, which is Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the Tim Burton hater.
Edward Scissorhands seemed like the story kept circling around. Like if you look at synopsis,
it's more to me. It's more about the snow than it is about Christmas.
Yeah,
so,
that's fair.
I mean, because obviously, because he's doing that thing to like.
That's why it's in a Christmas adjacent. I feel like both movies are very.
But see, like Batman Returns easily is a Christmas movie, and I completely agree. Mm-hmm. In a non-traditional, Batman, that story, I would definitely put that in there. But yeah, for me, Edward Scissorhands just seems less like Christmas and more like, I don't know, an overrated director making an avatar of himself and then, wasting Vincent Price on a role. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't have opinions.
Well, we know it was easy for you to cut. What was hard? What was a hard matchup here?
Well, Gremlins vs. Bad Santa is pretty dang funny. And
I knew you loved that. You and your dad loved that.
Yeah, and but I I'd go with Gremlins just because Gremlins is one of my favorite movies ever. And then honestly, like having Trading Places. I mean, Trading Places is never going to do well against Die Hard, but like it was hard to because I love Trading Places so much. It's so funny. And I think it's actually one of his more I think people think of Beverly Hills Cop and they think of 48 Hours. I really feel like Trading Places kind of doesn't get the credit it deserves for how funny Eddie Murphy is in it. And then Dan Aykroyd's, it's so good in it too. And it's.
Once you have a man with no legs, you never go back, baby. I know what you're thinking. You see Paul getting best? We can make it, baby. Who's that?
Police. We've had some complaints about con men pretending to be blind and crippled.
But I ain't seen nothing since I stepped on that landmine in Viet Cong back in '72. It was rough, very painful.
Where?
I was in Sang Bang, Dangon. I was Agent Orange. That was my name, Agent Orange. Special Agent Orange. That was me. I can see. I can see. I have legs. Jesus. Praise Jesus.
I know. I'm permitted 2 phone calls. Just point me to the phone.
Take off your clothes.
You are making a career decision here. Now, you'd better think about it.
Strip, you little shit, before I tell you a new asshole.
Did you hear what this man said to me? Now, I have witnesses. This man is physically threatening me.
Yeah, it's one of those movies I wish people, like my wife had never seen it. And so when she was picking, she was like, I don't know what to pick. And so I was like, well, we got to watch Trading Places because she might not like some of the stuff in it though.
Yeah. It's very hyper 80s.
Yeah, it's very 80s.
For men of the 80s.
Yeah.
So Trading Space, I do that all the time. Trading Spaces.
I know.
I love Paige.
Oh, I thought you were a Genevieve guy. Mm.
Oh, I do like Genevieve. Yeah. I like too. But Trading Places versus Batman Returns, that wasn't hard.
No, that was
because of Tim Burton.
No, it's just because I love. I mean, honestly, like I've said before, Batman Returns, Batman, and Ed Wood are okay, and then everything else is as much overrated garbage. Sorry, Justina. Realized though he barely had it was like his name on Nightmare Before Christmas. So
true, yeah. He like basically drew the stuff.
The stuff he created and like.
But someone else like did all the other work.
All the directing and good stuff.
What did you end up with? I'm gonna
Die Hard.
Yeah,
Die Hard.
That's what I figured. Trey, what were your hard matchups, and what did you end up with?
This one wasn't so hard for me, in part because there are a couple that I hadn't seen. I mean, Bad Santa's another one where it hit at the wrong pocket for me to see it. It's one I know I would love it if I saw it. Just from what I've seen, I know I'd love it. But I didn't see it. I love Gremlins. It's been a long time since I've seen Gremlins, but I remembered loving it, so I went with Gremlins.
Sidebar. Which in your heart of hearts, do you prefer Gremlins or Gremlins 2?
It's a good. I'd have to rewatch them to answer your question.
I would too,
because I would say Gremlins 2.
Yeah, because I know that the Red Letter Media guys, we keep name dropping them in all of our pop talks.
Some name drop them like we know.
Every time I go to Milwaukee, I hope I run into Jay. So
right. But they talked about it, and they talked about how if I'm remembering correctly, the director didn't want to do the second one. And so he only did it if he could
Joe Dante,
whatever the hell he wanted to do. And so he essentially just completely subverted the first movie and just was essentially spoofing it.
And that's the backstory is he's like, all right, I'm done with fucking Gremlins. And then the studio went off and tried to put together their own Gremlins 2. They couldn't come up with any ideas that they thought would work, so that like 5 years later, they went back to Joe Dante and said, maybe you had something to do with why it was successful? Do whatever you want. Which leads to possibly the weirdest sequel to like a big blockbuster movie ever made. The plot in this movie does not matter whatsoever, because this is a movie that Joe Dante didn't want to make. They told him to do whatever he wanted, so he used the opportunity to just make a gag-a-minute Looney Tunes, live-action Looney Tunes movie that also mocks everything about the first film.
Okay,
it has one of my favorite scenes ever where they're talking about like there's a guy in a control room and he says like, okay, what if like it's on a flight and it's like 11 o'clock, but then it becomes mid, and then like when this gremlin busts through the board and kills him for making the complaint.
I gotta see this movie.
What if they're eating in an airplane and they cross a time zone? I mean, it's always midnight somewhere.
And they kill Leonard. They also kill Leonard Maltin too in the sequel. Sorry.
Yeah, so it sounds like I would, if I watched them again, I'd probably like you, Rob, lean toward the second one because of because he did it in a smart way. It's not like subverting just for subverting's sake. Like it's actually a story and it's actually stuff going on. So I'd probably like Gremlins 2 better, but I'd have to rewatch to be sure. But Edward Scissorhands versus Eyes Wide Shut. I'm not a Tim Burton hater, and I haven't seen Eyes Wide Shut, so I just went Edward Scissorhands.
Fidelio.
The one difficult matchup, because I like both movies, was Trading Places and Batman Returns.
That was tough.
Yeah, that is actually hard.
And when I saw them on people's lists, I said this to Jason when this came up. I didn't think of either as a Christmas movie. Whenever I think about those movies, I think about the stories, and I almost don't even see the Christmas decorations in there.
Right.
But I rewatched large chunks of both today. And it's like right up front, like it's Christmas trees everywhere. Like it's like, how did my memory not remember?
Well, there's like people like Christmas shopping and the first like thing with the clowns and stuff, right? And because I didn't even...
Max Schreck and the mayor go out to wish people Merry Christmas and all that, and Trading Places.
Well, in Trading Places, I always kind of thought it more. I knew it was Christmas time because there's obviously Dan Aykroyd's dressed up as Santa, but I always think of it more as a New Year's movie too because the whole caper on the train happens on New Year's.
Yeah, that's New Year's. You're right.
Yeah,
I caught that today. So Batman Returns is probably a little more Christmassy technically. But and there is the scene, even though I didn't think of it as a Christmas movie, the scene that I do remember is how Selena and Bruce figured out who each other were because of the first time they met as Batman and Catwoman. They're under the mistletoe, and Batman says, "Oh, mistletoe's poisonous if you eat it, or deadly if you eat it." And Catwoman says, "A kiss can be deadlier if you mean it."
Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it.
But a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it.
Ooh, it's a good line.
Oh, that is a good line.
And so later in the movie, when they're Bruce and Selena, they reverse it. Like Selena sees the mistletoe and then says, "It's deadly if you eat it." And then Bruce finishes it. And then they look at each other and like, "Oh, shit."
A kiss under the mistletoe. Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it.
A kiss can be even deadly if you mean it.
Oh my God. Does this mean we have to start fighting?
We should do it on a rooftop.
That scene I always remembered, but still somehow forgot all the Christmas stuff. But I went with Trading Places on that matchup, even though I love both movies. Die Hard was easy, but I will mention I'm the one who said to Jason, "Silent Night, Deadly Night." I said it as a joke.
I wanted that in the bracket.
I said it as a joke, not thinking he put it in because we loved it as kids.
Okay, it just had
punishment is necessary.
Punishment is necessary, Pamela. It is good.
Yeah.
Which one is it? The second one that has the famous
Garbage Day.
Garbage Day.
Is that the second one?
That's the second one.
That's the second one. Okay, you've got to
So
put that.
funny.
Sorry, Trey.
So, little side note, there are at least five Silent Night, Deadly Night movies. I had no idea. I only knew about the first two.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh God.
Isn't that ridiculous? I felt the same way I felt when I found out there was more than just two Air Bud movies. I was like, why are there so many of these?
Sidebar, one morning, my son and I watched Airbuds Go to Space, and I gotta say, for movies about talking dogs, they go to space. It was one of the best.
Well, I forgot that one because there is one. Most of them, the dogs don't talk, right? That's the one that changed. And
oh yeah, they just straight up talking, and it's like, wait a minute, what? Like
they went full on Fast and the Furious off the rails.
Yeah,
I think I read something about that when you made a reference to that in a previous Pop Talk, where it was like they just changed the whole franchise with that movie.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I have a great idea for a movie that I just thought of because of a joke I made. A la the notion of doing a Men in Black crossover with the Jump Street movies. They need to do a Fast and the Furious Air Bud crossover and call it the Fast and the Furriest. I'm out, everybody. Thank you and good night.
Nice.
This is the end of the There It Is podcast.
We're done. We're burning it down. Starting again.
Shut it down.
Shut it down.
Where else were you going with that, Trey?
Oh, just that, Silent Night, Deadly Night is actually well crafted. The first one, not the second.
Yeah.
The first
It's
one's
like the
well
first
crafted.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
I love that line delivery.
Another
it is so
red,
Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, another Red Letter Media reference is that apparently, I forget where they were talking about it, but apparently the second movie is really just reusing footage of the first one and telling the first one again, but a new framing device with that Garbage Day guy as the new framing device.
The movie is the result of, because the original movie came out and it was controversial, and thanks to Mothers in Milwaukee, it got pulled from theaters.
Huh. Well, did Mickey Rooney have anything to do with
Mickey
that?
Rooney did. He was very vocal about this film and his hatred for this movie. And then he ended up starring in Silent Night, Deadly Night 5 because he needed cash. So the idea was, the studio was like, okay, our movie got pulled immediately. We want to make some more money off this. Let's re-release it. We'll re-edit it and re-release it. But let's add a framing device to it.
Oh, so the sequel is that.
So the sequel, the original idea was, a little bit at the beginning, a little bit at the end, and then the rest of the movie would be a flashback, is a recut version of the first movie. But then they shot a little too much footage, and so then, the second half of this movie is the new footage.
It's such a bizarre scene, man.
Because he's the little brother of the Santa killer from the first movie, so I guess.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
I keep laughing at that scene. It's just so absurd. Oh gosh, the whole thing's supposed to be about punishment. He's just killing this guy just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Like, what's this got to do with punishment?
Well, his brother was about the punishment.
Oh,
this kid was crazy.
This guy's just great,
and
crazy.
the writer of the movie was just bad.
Man.
Die Hard won this category.
Okay, Justina, what were the hard ones in this, and what did you end up with?
The hard ones for me were Batman Returns versus Die Hard. Those two being versus each other. And obviously Edward Scissorhands, got to the final two of non-traditional movies. For all these brackets that we ever do, it's just like how they make me feel. And I just like the way Edward Scissorhands makes me feel. Also,
and that's the way you should answer it.
Yeah.
Feel good. I'm glad I can do something right, honestly. And
even though Rob wants to hate on
about
you.
Christmas movies, because I was noticing some of these movies and I feel like they're more Christmassy if I personally saw them for the first time at Christmas time. Like I saw Die Hard at Christmas time with friends at a Christmas party. And so besides all of the content of the movie, it just registers as a Christmas movie to me for that reason. But Batman Returns, I feel like you and I watched that over the summer, baby. And
we did. It's because you had not seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's totally Christmassy, but I don't immediately think of it that way.
That makes sense.
Anyhow, it came down to Die Hard and Edward Scissorhands for me, and it went to Die Hard.
Yeah. This one wasn't such a hard category. I was just for fun. I wish Silent Night, Deadly Night had made it past the first round, but it only made sense in the 8th seed, and Die Hard only made sense in the first seed, so it was going to be Die Hard. Which, spoiler alert, Die Hard is my #1 non-traditional movie. And Trading Places versus Batman Returns was tough. I went with Trading Places. And I, again, still had to go with Die Hard. And I went with Eyes Wide Shut. Edward Scissorhands I'm fine with, but Eyes Wide Shut is a movie I think is real good.
Got a little stoned tonight. You've been trying to pick a fight with me, and now you're trying to make me jealous.
And why haven't you ever been jealous about me?
Maybe because you're my wife, and I know you would never be unfaithful.
Very, very sure of yourself, aren't you?
No. I'm sure of you. Do you think that's funny?
And that actually went up against Die Hard for me.
People should go back and really watch Eyes Wide Shut. It is a really good movie. And it is really, it's kind of fascinating because it's about basically Tom Cruise gets mad because Nicole Kidman admits she has a fantasy. And so he goes down this road because he's so emasculated that she has this fantasy about another man that he does this crazy stuff. And so it's a really, and then knowing that they're going to get divorced, like basically like the year after it's done, or like they're probably led to them getting divorced was making this movie. It's really fascinating.
It was a very grueling film shoot, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really long because Kubrick was a maniac. So, but yeah.
And then passed away.
Yeah,
when they were
basically killed
making
him.
it.
Yeah.
So just so I can make sure I understood what you said, the whole time you said Tom Cruise's name, were you speaking of the real life actor, or were you talking about his character?
I don't know. You know, I mean, I love the dude, but like, yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I love him too, but
Yeah.
I know how people feel about him.
Yeah.
In some cases, how some people feel
yeah.
about him, but I dig the dude.
Yeah.
I think he's great. Yeah, so Die Hard was pretty easy. Pretty easy for that to be next. Well, let's move on to the next division, TV specials. This was pretty easy to put together because there weren't 50 choices.
No.
We know what the classics are, folks. Like it wasn't hard to pick this. Only a couple didn't make the cut. Similar to A Christmas Carol in traditional movies, there are a lot, too damn many, TV special versions of A Christmas Carol. There's a 1984 George C. Scott version, a 1999 Patrick Stewart version.
The George C. Scott one's the one I always, before there was a Muppet Christmas, I didn't have any connection to the 51 or 38 one. It was the George C. Scott one I always thought of.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but I'll tell you
that one a lot
something.
too. I did like it, but I like 51 and 38 better.
Yeah, I really don't even know which ones I like best. I saw all of them as a kid, and there's so many, and they're all so different that I didn't connect with any of them.
Yeah.
And so A Christmas Carol is one where it's like, I love the story, but which one do I choose out of the million that I've seen? I don't know. I really, truly don't.
The Muppet.
And I could say a Muppet one just because it's the Muppets, but I don't have a strong connection with any of them.
Our mom basically hates the George C. Scott version. I'm not sure why. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think part of why the older ones resonate with me more is there's something about them. I don't know if it's because they're black and white or something about the wardrobe or whatever, but it feels more like they're of the time they're depicting. Whereas a lot of the others to me feel like present day people playing dress up.
That's interesting. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
And like A Christmas Carol is all over this bracket, even with Scrooged. Like here I'm talking about how many TV specials there were of A Christmas Carol, and Scrooged is about them making another TV special.
Yeah.
And also lampooning how ridiculous it is, because they have like Mary Lou Retton playing Tiny Tim, and
God bless us, everyone.
I don't know. I'm real salty about A Christmas Carol, y'all. But I opted for the 1971 version because it seemed to be the most iconic version in some respects. And it's the one I saw referenced the most.
I can't stop thinking about, every time we talk about Scrooge, I can't stop thinking about I Think You Should Leave. Because they have that skit where, like, Sam Richardson goes back in time to get Scrooge to help him fight the Bonies. And he's like, Scrooge, use your cane. That's good Boney smashing.
Yeah! Smash that pole, mama! Attaboy! That's good bone crushing!
Please watch I Think You Should Leave. It's the best show on
It's
Netflix.
really a great show. That is a really classic show. So that's today's sponsors. I Think You Should Leave. No.
I wish.
But anyway, just like with the traditional movie, A Christmas Carol, like just whatever is your favorite one, just make that the one that you have going up against How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And if How the Grinch Stole Christmas somehow loses to any version of A Christmas Carol that was on television, I don't understand you. So, Trey, let's start with you. Trey, what was the hard matchup in TV specials and what ended up being your number one?
I don't think there was a hard one. I guess the closest to being hard, even though I would not call it hard, it was still a bit of a landslide, was A Charlie Brown Christmas over Rudolph. I mean, they're both classics. They're both great. But, you know, Charlie Brown Christmas was just easy for me. But that was the toughest of these. That was a second round matchup. But everything else was easy. So How the Grinch Stole Christmas was easy in round one. I went Santa Claus is Coming to Town over Frosty.
Interesting.
Because we just rewatched Frosty last night, or my mom and I did.
I saw some of it,
And
I was laughing at a couple.
it's not. I mean, that's Rankin and Bass. They're the same people who did Rudolph and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. But I don't know. I think they didn't bring their
They didn't bring
talent
the fire?
to. I mean, Frosty just wasn't the same. First of all, it was animated instead of the claymation kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then the stuff. I mean, it's stuff that's probably common in cartoons and stuff of that era. Like I was laughing at the little girl just getting on a train to go to the North Pole with Frosty, and it's like your parents don't care.
Are you coming to the North Pole too?
I'm sure my mother won't mind, as long as I'm home in time for supper.
Like, what's up with this? Like, it seems like these other specials just made that kind of stuff make more sense.
Yeah.
So Frosty was easy to say no to. I saw a good chunk of Santa Claus is Coming to Town again recently, and it's a good story, but the Grinch beat it. And Rudolph, I was surprised at I remembered obviously that it's, the bullying messages and stuff like, and how Rudolph, I didn't realize how hard they went with it until rewatching it last night. It's like his parents see the red nose and they're like, oh shit. Like, this is wrong and we got to do something about this.
Well, we'll simply have to overlook it.
Now, how can you overlook that? Great bouncing iceberg. Now, I'm sure it'll stop as soon as he grows up, Santa.
And then later on, when Rudolph's a little older and they give him the little nose, the fake black nose to put over there, his father's like, you got to have some self-respect, boy.
Son, try it on.
Daddy, I don't like it.
You'll like it and wear it.
Not very comfortable.
There are more important things than comfort. Self-respect.
It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons I didn't like and have a harder time liking not a harder time. I like Home Alone now, but I hate how the family treats Kevin.
It's worse in the second movie, though.
My prank was immature and ill-timed.
It was pretty goddamn hilarious.
Kevin, I'm sorry.
That was very nice. Kevin, do you have something to say?
Beat that, you little trout sniffer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, someone was talking about the second movie and about how, like, the dad was mad that he spent all this money on the credit card, like $900 and some on the credit card, and was like yelling at him. And
Kevin, you spent $967 on road service.
It's like, this was the second time you forgot him at Christmas. Like, you're a monster. You're yelling about a credit. Would you want him to not eat? You want him to starve?
Have you guys watched Home Sweet Home Alone yet?
No.
No.
I think Jason's not wanting to.
No, we watched it on Friday night, and it's like the concept is basically like they think that the kids stole something that could save them from like their house, because like they're going to be poor and like they're going to have to sell their house if they don't have this toy they're going to try to sell, and they think that the kids stole it. And so that's why they're trying to break in. So they're not like bad people. And so like watching it, there's like horrible traps in the new one. And just like watching Ellie Kemper like get set on fire and stuff. But it's like they're not the Wet Bandits. It's enjoyable. They're monsters. They want to steal. They're bad people. But then this new one, it's like I can understand why they're trying to break into this house to get this toy. So it's like it's like really it's really frustrating to watch. It's like
I do think with the first Home Alone, they made Kevin the right amount of brat for you to be okay with how most of the family was with him at the beginning.
Candle for the... Hey, get off. Kevin, out of the room.
Hang up the phone and make me, why don't you?
Now, Uncle Frank, not so much.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
Buzz, not so much.
Did anyone order me a plain cheese?
Oh, yeah, we did. If you want any, somebody's gonna have to barf it all up.
Buzz is a fucking asshole. He is way worse than Kevin, and the parents don't do shit about it, and it eats at my craw every time I see that movie or a scene of that movie, even if Buzz isn't in it. I'm like, that Buzz.
Well, see, that's where I'm giving the first one credit as much as as funny as it is. I did not know that you had this fire, this hatred in your core.
Every kid I went to elementary school with was Buzz to me, and no one did anything about those Buzzes in the world.
But that's
and Buzz is Donald Trump.
Oh my god!
But that's where again, I think if you only knew about the first one, Buzz is the right level of bully.
Believe all of this. This is a Christmas episode.
I know.
I mean, like, I've been watching the F words for weeks now, and like, you're just blowing them all out. I didn't even use the F word when we talked about Die Hard. I didn't even do my favorite line.
Yeah, but like I said, I think Buzz was the right amount of bully in the first one because it was eating the pizza when the parents couldn't see, and it's the classic. The one who retaliates is the one who's caught, and it's after Kevin actually was being a brat with his mom, and then all the other things that led to them not having the alarm. I think everything was crafted perfectly, and then it's when you have a movie like that with a one-note premise that becomes popular, and you have to do a sequel.
How do you do it right?
So the family was horrible, and they deserve to go in jail.
Did John Hughes write the second one?
I think so.
Did he?
Because he wrote it and Chris Columbus directed it. Is that right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris Columbus was actually offered Christmas Vacation, but realized he wasn't going to get along with Chevy Chase, and so that's how he got on Home Alone.
That's interesting.
Not getting along with Chevy Chase? My God, this is news to me.
Yeah. But going back to Rudolph, and just the last thing I'm going to say about Rudolph is do yourself a favor and look at some of the comments in YouTube when they posted Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
God.
Because it was hilarious. The first one I saw is Santa Claus knows when you've been naughty and nice and when you're sleeping and awake, and he didn't know that they're bullying Rudolph. And then, like, all these people are either amening it or saying, don't ruin my childhood. Or some people are saying, Santa was complicit. Look at how he treated Rudolph.
Oh, the only reason, and it's basically like a really transactional relationship. It's like, hey, look, weirdo, like there's a lot of fog tonight, so I need you.
My gosh.
But just know that as soon as we're done here, we're done. We're done.
Santa is the Buzz of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
That is the thing that made me surprised rewatching it last night, is that, so Rudolph goes and he almost dies. He's like, he runs away from home, basically. And he almost dies on treachery, and then he like reconnects with the family, and everybody learns to accept him because they've been missing him.
They start to realize maybe they were a little hard on the misfits.
And it's after the lesson that when Rudolph's nose goes off, Santa's like, damn that nose.
There's nothing I can do. This weather. Could you tone it down a bit? I mean, that nose of yours. That beautiful, wonderful nose.
Huh?
Christmas is not off, and you're going to lead my team. From what I see now, that'll cut through the murkiest storm they can dish up.
It's like, damn, Santa.
Oh, man.
Charlie Brown won this category.
Yeah, and this one wasn't hard for me either because it was going to be How the Grinch Stole Christmas against Charlie Brown, and Charlie Brown was going to win. I just knew that before I even put this bracket together. Like, I just knew that was what it was going to be. Frosty the Snowman, I did actually get into the second category, but it's, to me, mostly because of on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon when they did an audience suggestion box. Look into the box, through the suggestion box. You gotta look that up and put it into YouTube now. I love the jingles the Roots do. But anyway, way back when he was on Late Night, they did the suggestion box where someone said in the classic Frosty the Snowman TV special, when he comes to life, he says something.
Happy birthday!
But can you make him say something else? And they were like, yeah, sure. And so they show the clip and like they put the head on the snowman and the magic happens and he turns real. And then the snowman, the Frosty the Snowman looks at him and goes, y'all don't know me. And it killed me. I watched it every once in a while. I would just look at that clip. I kept it on my DVR for ages just so I could keep looking at that clip. It was so funny to me, so silly, and that's why I got there. But Charlie Brown Christmas. I mean, come on.
We actually watched it Friday night, and Luke had seen it before, but it was like getting him to see it again, and it's so good. He loves Snoopy.
Yeah, me too.
And so like no shit. Oh, Jason, do you like the Beatles too? I don't know, like like.
So here's the point in the discussion where we piss Rob off. So I was reading IMDb trivia, so grain of salt because it's IMDb trivia. Anyone could have put a lie up there. But as I understand it, the TV executives saw the final cut of Charlie Brown Christmas and they're like, no, we can't air this because they thought that Linus quoting the Bible and the jazz music were going to turn off the audiences.
Oh my God.
The jazz music.
Yeah.
The thing that made the special.
The thing that is one of the greatest things ever. Like, I would argue, and if we could do a bracket on Christmas albums, I think Guaraldi's is the best. As we're listening to a lot of, I hear Christmas Time Is Here.
Christmas time is here. Snowflakes in the air.
Or I hear, the Oh Christmas Tree.
Yeah.
I love when he goes into the swing on Oh Christmas Tree. It's just one of my favorite things. And I studied jazz in college. So it's just like one of my absolute favorite things. It's just, they were such a good group. And it's such a radical idea when you watch it. It's like, I can't believe this is the music they picked. But it's so perfect.
Vince Guaraldi is so great.
It's so amazing.
It's not Christmas until I hear a number of songs.
I have to hear Linus and Lucy, or I have to hear Christmas Time Is Here.
I have to hear Christmas Time Is Here. Yeah.
The special only aired because it was I think it was too last second, and they didn't have anything else to put in the slot, so they're just
That's
like,
amazing.
okay, F it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think remember my dad talking about he was like. He remembered it being a little controversial, the Linus speech.
For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord.
And, it's like, but I'm like, but Christmas is about Jesus. So, like,
how dare you?
Apparently, when Charles Schultz was crafting this, I forget the name of the gentleman he was collaborating with, but the gentleman said to Charles Schultz, can we really have Linus give this speech? And Schultz said something to the effect of, if Linus doesn't, who will?
Oh, I love that response.
That's right. It's great.
Rob, did you have any tough matchups here? And what was your number one?
Charlie Brown. But obviously when you have Grinch go against Charlie Brown, that's a little tricky.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Yeah,
but at least it happened there.
Yeah, and I think I had a little more fondness towards Frosty, but I think probably because of Frosty, because of the song.
Frosty the snowman was a jolly happy soul.
He was made of snow, but the children know how he came to life one day.
But he waved goodbye, saying, don't you cry.
I'll be back on Christmas Day.
And so some of that has to do with it. Like like Santa Claus is coming to town, I probably would enjoy more. Same with A Year Without Santa Claus too. I think I'd probably enjoy, but I think it's because of the Rudolph song.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. Then how the reindeer loved him. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history.
In the Frosty song, I just have a little more nostalgia for it in that sense. So so it's kind of hard to lose some of those in the first round, but really, I mean, I don't remember the Snowman. That was the only one I didn't know.
I didn't know that one either.
Yeah, I had forgotten about it. I had seen of it before, and
was it the monster? Is it the monster from Rudolph?
No,
No.
Oh, okay.
I recognized the image when Jason showed me.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't.
But
I don't.
I really do like the artwork of it.
Yeah.
Justina, did you have any hard matchups, and what was your number one?
I don't think I had any hard matchups. Anything snowman really scares me. It always has. because they melt and they die. And so I couldn't handle that as a sensitive young child.
So have you seen Jack Frost with Michael Keaton?
Yeah, I can't watch it and I don't want to watch it. And yeah.
There's also a horror movie called Jack Frost. And
Yeah,
a friend of ours is also in a commercial where there's a snowman that gets run over.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
like,
are you
this
talking
is
about
messed
that?
up.
Are you talking about the one with the Apple commercial where the kid puts a
Yeah, and she puts it in the freezer to
freezer-
save it.
freezer?
Yeah, the dad is a friend of ours, and Peter McNerney. He's been on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
He's
Is
in a lot of commercials.
Do you know who the woman is in that commercial, by the way?
I didn't recognize her, but I don't remember what she looks like.
She looks like this, and I would because I was looking at it. She looks like this woman who plays Rava on Succession, which is Jeremy Strong's ex-wife. And so I've been trying to figure that out, and I haven't really like deep dived into. Is that Rava?
Maybe it's on iSpot.tv. We'll have to.
Okay.
That seems to be a spotty.
It is. It's not as
No pun intended.
helpful as IMDb is. So Justina, you don't like Frost. You don't like any snowman stuff, not even
Any
just Frosty.
snowman, yes. And so nothing here was really hard for me, but it is funny. Like Rudolph, it was Rudolph up against How the Grinch Stole Christmas for me, and Grinch won because I really like the Grinch a lot. But I totally forgot about how mean they were to Rudolph. I remember that movie fondly, but like what Trey said earlier, I'm like, yeah, they were mean. So that was funny to remember. But yeah, How the Grinch Stole Christmas for me.
Wow.
Yeah, and and that's a really close one. That was a hard match too.
Yeah.
Just 'cause we rewatched the Grinch again because we watched both a Grinch or the Grinch How the Grinch Stole Christmas, blah, 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 blah. How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Charlie Brown on Friday, and yeah, it was like just watching. I love the animation in that and just the music and also the music in that. I love the
and his
like,
smile, his evil smile.
His smile is great, and then Max is so freaking cute. So yeah, there's some great. And like, my son was just dying.
Oh, yeah.
He was loving the dog, especially when they're the first time they go downhill and like he's going under the sled and everything.
Yeah.
He was just dying in that scene. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great one. I mean, that's what went up against Charlie Brown for me.
Yeah. And that to me, when you say TV special, I think those are the two I think of.
Yeah,
me too.
And
First two.
you also
hands
forget
down.
how short they are. I guess when you have a small child that you're trying to occupy a lot of their time, yeah, you're like, oh damn, this is short.
At least Rudolph was an hour. But,
yeah, Rudolph is an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're gonna watch that next week. So
nice. Well, finally, animated movies. Only theatrical movies were considered. For the record, I do consider a streaming service-produced motion picture to be a theatrical movie. So yes, Virginia, Claus counts. Now, this was actually the easiest to do for me because there were surprisingly few animated movies to choose from that were theatrical movies. There are only 10 in consideration, and The Star and 8 Crazy Nights didn't make the cut. It was not hard to make this choice. This should explain why some movies that you've never heard of are in this category, because there just weren't a lot of options.
I really thought because of Trey's lust for Zack Snyder, that's why you had Rise of the Guardians in there.
I didn't know that was Zack. I had never heard of it before.
That's like it's the most well-regarded thing that he's done, it looks like.
Wow.
Yeah.
Critics like that movie. It has a good cast. So I'll go first on this one. I didn't have a tough time with this because I hadn't seen most of these movies. I haven't seen Arthur Christmas. I haven't seen the 2009 A Christmas Carol. Stop making that movie. I haven't seen The Polar Express or the recent The Grinch from 2018 or through 2019. I didn't know what Tokyo Godfathers was. It's not popular in the sense of a bunch of people looking it up online. But when people talk about it, it is one of the most highly regarded movies in this entire bracket.
I've never heard of it.
And I've never seen Nightmare Before Christmas. So in a lot of cases, I just deferred to whatever was the top seed. Claus was the only movie I saw, so Claus ended up being my number one. Maybe a little unfair to some of these movies, but it was just the only thing that made
No,
sense.
I don't think it's unfair because I mean, I had the Grinch go all the way. I had seen it. I've seen Polar Express, Christmas Carol, because I do think that kind of animation is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So does Robert Zemeckis, but
Yep.
yeah, and I actually shockingly I didn't do the typical thing. I did let Nightmare Before Christmas win the first round.
Over Rise of the Guardians. So is that
Yeah.
because you
I
like
recognize that
him
that
more
would.
than Zack Snyder?
Do I like diarrhea more than vomiting? No, I'm just kidding. No.
So you talk about my lust for Zack Snyder, but you were high on him early too now.
No, I like Zack Snyder. No, I'm just joking about that. No, no, I don't. I mean, I love the remake of Dawn of the Dead. I will defend that till yeah. I actually might like it more than the original. But
Written by
so,
James Gunn, which is part of why I think that was as good as it was.
I agree. Yeah, because that's why Army of the Dead sucked.
You need to give Zack Snyder a good writer.
Yes.
Then it'll be a great movie.
And an actual
But actually,
cinematographer.
the new Grinch is actually not that bad. It's
Okay.
I think it's pretty enjoyable.
I remember Trey talking about that, like the commercials for that, saying like, "What is this character they're doing with him?" But
Yeah.
I really like Benedict Cumberbatch.
Today, we will do mean things, and we will do them in style.
Excuse me, are you getting that?
No.
It was fun. I mean, but also you gotta think when I watched it, it was with children because we watched it like last year with other kids, and so they were really enjoying it. So then I was like, oh, this really isn't that terrible, because I was like, this is blasphemy. Why would they ever, I mean, I was not a big fan of the Jim Carrey remake, and so I was kind of like, why are they doing this again? Like they've got the perfect one, but actually it really isn't that bad.
I think what's tough when making a long form movie is
that was such a short.
Yeah, it's a 30-minute show that tells a full story.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're trying to do in 90 to 120 minutes a full story, like the same 30-minute story, and like add this stuff to it. And so I think that's where it gets difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like if they tried to remake a Charlie Brown Christmas, they would like try to explain like where the tree came from and like
they'd add a bunch of stuff.
It would be like Lucy gets like malpractice for her psychiatry.
And she really should. Like she's
really
clearly just gaming Charlie Brown. I mean,
Also,
she's giving him all these traumatic experiences.
Is she negging him because she likes him? Like rewatch it. Is she negging him because she likes him?
We've even got a Christmas queen.
I wonder.
Or because she gets really mad when he doesn't say she's beautiful and stuff.
What about the Christmas queen, Are you going to let all this beauty go to waste? You do think I'm beautiful, don't you, Charlie Brown? You didn't answer me right away.
So I'm like, maybe she secretly has a thing for the old blockhead.
But she tries to get Schroeder.
And mistletoe and presents to pretty girls?
That's true. I was just about to say.
Well, Trey, people can like more than one person at the same time.
Well, I wish going to see a psychiatrist was 5 cents. That's really.
Yeah, I do too.
Would be nice. What did you say was your number one in this category?
Grinch.
And Justina, what was this category like for you?
Pretty good. It was interesting. I didn't know a lot of the Rise of Guardians, Tokyo Godfathers, The Grinch. I was like, which Grinch?
Yeah.
But I eventually found it.
Which Grinch is which?
Well, there's only one animated theatrical, The Grinch.
Yes, I found it eventually. I kind of totally forgot about that one, but it came down to Nightmare Before Christmas because, like I've said, that movie shaped me, and Klaus, and that was
Klaus.
tough. Say what?
I called it Claus, but you're right, it's Klaus.
Oh yeah, I think it was Klaus. I think they pronounced it Klaus in the movie.
It is. You're right.
Okay. But it came down to Klaus for me because even though Nightmare Before Christmas is more special to me, I think Klaus is more Christmassy, and it is about how you feel, but I also like the way Klaus makes me feel. Klaus.
Wow, interesting. I would have easily said you were going to pick The Nightmare Before Christmas.
I
So
know, but I like cried watching Klaus. Like I
wow.
thought it was so sweet and had such a nice message and like,
I love the animation.
oh, it's so beautiful. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was it. Also, I do think The Nightmare Before Christmas is more Halloweeny in my, I would say, professional opinion, even though it doesn't have
Because
Halloween.
it is Halloween imagery, even though it's Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it belongs on this bracket. But
Yeah, it's got Christmas in the name.
no, yeah. But it has to be Klaus.
Plus
Trey?
you're a big Jason Schwartzman guy.
So this was, I guess, not difficult because I saw literally none of these. So I kind of just went off of gut instinct. So I went with Nightmare out of the first round, and I had it beating The Grinch in the second round. The Grinch, just because it's the Grinch, the story. But Jason's right. When I saw the commercials, I was like, what is this character? I don't understand what they're doing to the Grinch. And I think Jason said Clay had a similar reaction.
I can't remember. Didn't Clay not like it?
I think he liked it. I'd have to. Yeah, I don't remember if he did or not. And I didn't think I was like.
And what you can never pin Clay down.
No, because we argue quite a bit about things like.
Clay will like one thing, and you're like, really? And then he'll like something else. He'll dislike something else, and you're like, really? What?
Yeah.
He always surprises with.
It always surprises me that what he really likes is eating children. So that's so weird. But like,
surprise, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to see if he actually listens.
Yeah, so Nightmare, I had Nightmare Before Christmas beating Grinch just off of my reputation and my not understanding this version of the Grinch's character. In the bottom, obviously I mentioned Back to the Future is my favorite movie. I'm a big Robert Zemeckis fan.
So
I leaned Robert Zemeckis, so Polar Express going against Jim Carrey doing his multiple character Christmas Carol. And because I didn't see either movie, the way I picked that matchup was to go with which story do I like based on what I know, and I obviously love A Christmas Carol. So that ended up winning this bracket.
And I had Christmas. I mean, I had a Grinch vs. Christmas Carol because I think I enjoyed that more than the Polar Express because I don't, I didn't have a connection to the novel. And I know a lot of kids, like when that came out, and so I think there's actually literally a Polar Express you can ride on, like it like tours the country. I think there you can do like Polar Express rides. But yeah, I thought just based on the animation and Carrie, I enjoyed Christmas Carol a little bit more.
Yeah, I watched segments of both of those movies today just to kind of help me out, and I actually watched the trailer to After Christmas.
Operation Santa Claus is coming to town. Go! Engage rooftops. Let's pick this up, people.
Meet the family who makes Christmas happen.
Here's to me, doing an even better job next year.
But this Christmas...
There's been a glitch.
Oh dear.
A child's been missed! Who cares about one single child?
Just think she's the one kid in the whole world that Santa doesn't care about.
No child left behind!
Which looks like it's a good story.
And so many people, I mean, like this seed may seem ridiculous because Polar Express is number 6, but these other movies, like this really was an easy one to put together because it was just like how many lists it got on and how popular and how highly rated it was. I mean, it was. A lot of people hate on the Christmas Carol that they did, but I do want to see it. To be honest,
I just think that like Beowulf and some of the other stuff, and I think Tintin kind of used something. No, maybe it was different, but yeah, definitely like Beowulf. Yeah. Like I find that stuff really kind of fascinating from just watching it from just like maybe not a story standpoint, but just from watching it, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I was watching. If you're familiar with the YouTubers, the Corridor Crew, they do like stuntmen react and they do.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that before. Okay, yeah.
So they had a guest. I forget who this other YouTuber is because I'm not familiar with him, but they had this other YouTuber who does a lot of special effects stuff on as a guest. And they looked at, I think it was the Polar Express, But it was one of those Robert Zemeckis movies. And the guy made a good point, because a lot of people complain about kind of the uncanny valley and some of the stuff in these Robert Zemeckis animated motion cap movies. But the guy was like, man, Zemeckis is like innovating. He's creating it. Why are you so hard on it?
Everybody was complaining about how the Polar Express looks creepy, but I'm sorry. They were breaking new ground.
And the stuff does look great in both of those movies. And of course, Tom Hanks being Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't know Polar Express, it's still,
Yeah,
well, that one was one that seemed to wow people when it came out. So if I had to put it against A Christmas Carol, I may have gone with that, just because I haven't seen them. But it's there are a lot of interesting movies that are on this bracket that I'd be interested in seeing.
So what was your final two, and then your final?
Yes, that was where I was going to go next. My final two, A Christmas Story and Charlie Brown Christmas. And my winner was A Christmas Story.
Oh, fudge.
Get the glue.
We're out of glue.
You use up all the glue on purpose.
No, I want an official red under carbonation 200 jet rifle.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid. Ho, ho, ho.
It's got such a place in my heart. And I can tell you, if it was another day, it easily could have been It's a Wonderful Life versus Charlie Brown, and It's a Wonderful Life winning. It just, today, the way I answered it was A Christmas Story. Rob?
Well, for me, it was a Christmas Vacation versus Charlie Brown. And this is where any other day it could have been Die Hard versus Charlie Brown.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I know it really was hard, but I really thought about it, and I was like, well, I guess the way I looked at it was, as hard as I try, just like Jake Peralta, I just can't get my partner into Die Hard. So,
well, at least Peralta got his child named McLean.
Yeah, I know. But Megan and I both, like, she filled out her bracket, and I'll share it with you guys. But we both picked Christmas Vacation. I think when we ultimately, when we're thinking of Christmas and what we want to watch, it's definitely Christmas Vacation. And when you have a film that you can agree on with your spouse, it's pretty amazing. So, but I just want to talk about just one. Randy Quaid is so freaking funny in it. Chevy Chase is great. As much as I love Anthony Michael Hall in Vacation, I think that the combination of Rusty and Audrey are better in Christmas Vacation, because Juliette Lewis is the superior Audrey, and I like Galecki, especially the scene where they're in the department store, and he's like, "Look, Russ, no panty line."
Can't see the line.
Can't see the line, can you, Russ?
No.
Just that part is just. I love that part.
I was gonna say, Rob, you're in Minnesota where it's a bit nipply out.
Because it's cold out?
Yes, it is. It's a bit nipply out. I mean, nippy out.
So.
Yeah, we're divorced. But my favorite thing, actually, is I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus and that guy. I don't know that the guy who plays Todd. I don't know who he is. I think I've seen him in something else, and he's Todd. And I don't know, Margot.
Well, obviously something had to break the window. Something had to hit the stereo.
And why is the carpet all wet, Todd?
I don't know, Margot.
So, like, sometimes when Megan and I argue, I will say that. I'll be like, I don't know, Margot. And she looks at me and she's like, I'm going to murder you. But it's just, that to me is like yuppie couple. Just, I love them so much. So, Christmas Vacation.
Trey, what about you? What were your final two and then your winner?
So before I say the final two, just one other thing about A Christmas Story. Going back to something Rob said earlier. I would have picked A Christmas Story over anything over animated movies.
Yes.
That would have been in my final four.
Agreed.
It's just the way the bracket laid out. It got creamed early. So anyway, my final two, It's a Wonderful Life versus A Charlie Brown Christmas. It's a Wonderful Life winning. Attaboy, Clarence.
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. That's why I don't like it.
That scene actually makes me tear up when I see it.
Oh,
though.
every year
Yeah.
for me. Because it's the turn, it's the arc of that relationship. Because George thinks this is his crazy ass old man, and by the end, when Clarence has saved him, and he gets the Tom Sawyer book, and Donna Reed marries, like, what is that? And it's a gift from a very dear friend of mine.
What's that?
That's a Christmas present from a very dear friend of mine.
It's just that
Jimmy
delivery.
Stewart's so good. He's so good. He's such a maestro in that scene. Justina, what were your final two, and what was your winner?
It was Christmas Story versus Klaus, and it was A Christmas Story. Just a very special movie. But I can also see, since we're all doing like on a different day, I can see Elf going all the way. Obviously, didn't make it even past Christmas Story. But I can
Right.
I could see, yeah. I mean, that's another one where it's like I love Elf so much.
I do too. I loved it in the theater when I saw it.
Yeah, I think
it was
did we
such a
see
fun
that
movie.
together?
We may have.
I feel like we did. That's like in this pocket where we pretty much saw everything together.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That was a fun movie.
And I think people underrate it because it made Will Ferrell a movie star. Because it's like it's the reason he gets Anchorman. It's the so some of the greatest comedies ever are birthed from. I mean, it's also the reason why Jon Favreau basically created
Favreau is the big deal that he is because
of
Elf.
And I think people forget. I mean, Made was hilarious and stuff, but he could have made these
he could have just been making those kind of art house movies for his entire
and he
career.
made like
but
the
if it wasn't
greatest
for
thing
Elf,
that Star Wars has ever had, The Mandalorian. So I mean, besides the original,
true.
you know what I mean? Like, and it all comes from Elf, and so you have to appreciate it from that standpoint. And
While I haven't seen the movie all the way through, I did get a huge laugh out of "Call Me Elf One More Time."
Oh gosh! All right, big man.
Feeling strong, my friend? Call me Elf one more time.
He's an angry elf.
Look at you!
Ow!
No, when KG has the line where he's like, "They're a group of asparagus, but he's afraid about his pee." The smell of his pee.
Oh gosh, that movie's so funny. Ed Asner's funny in it.
No, Bob Newhart to me, I love Bob Newhart, and he's so funny in it. Like, yeah, and all the forced the forced perspective stuff they did, and just you watch, and then obviously too, I think it's pretty cool that they have Peter Billingsley in it, as one of the elves, and like, there's just a lot of really cool things, and and Mary Steenburgen just guys. Obviously, like one of my top 10 films of all time is Step Brothers, and so I just feel like that's why she did Step Brothers, is because she's so funny in Step Brothers.
So true, yeah.
With Elf, just one more thing is with my son, and any time that I belch loud, I look at him and I go, "Did you hear that?" I'm ruining him.
Well, of the show, gang, this has been a fun one to do. I'm glad that we got to celebrate Christmas together.
Yes.
Merry Christmas to all.
And to all the good night.
Ding, 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 ding. There it is. Ding, 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 ding. There it is. Ding, 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 ding. But for real, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. If you're somebody that doesn't think Die Hard is a Christmas movie, just do yourself a favor, and why don't you take a shower with a toaster? Because you're dumb.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother...
All right, I said it.
No, you said it wrong, though.
Mother.
What was that you said to me before?
What is that you said to me?
Yippee-ki-yay.
Mother. Also, my wife changed her name to Gennaro. Do you think I'm okay?
I hope you had a jolly good time with us. Get the bracket in the blog for this episode on our website, thereitispod.com. We'll also share the bracket on our social media. Download it and share yours with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at thereitispod. follow us if you please, and check out the enhanced version of this episode on youtube.com/thereitis later this week. We have a newsletter you can subscribe to and support us if you can. Links in bio. We're taking a week off, so no new episode next week, but we have some amazing guests in January. We have this awesome confidence coach, the return of Davey Gardner, and Dylan Adler. All of these chats are so great. I can't wait to hear them. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and until next time, be good to each other.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.
Isn't there anyone who knows what Christmas is all about?
Zoot pedals! Zoot! There they are!
God bless us.
God bless us, everyone.